I got really, really fat. And not really fat, but like, I'm probably more fat now than I was back then, realistically. But it was more so the mindset. And so I wanted to clean up my health a little bit. I wanted to finally lose the fat and get some abs showing, like a lifelong dream almost. Keto. I tried keto. Now, what does keto actually have to do with calories in, calories out? Nothing. And yet I was convinced by people on the internet that this was the only way you could use fat, as if some sort of hormonal stuff was at play. I was continuously lied to, and I was miserable. I would order food, I'd have to remove the burger bun, I'd have to remove the fries, and I'd just be eating like a plate of salad and some beef. It was just meat. And in honesty, it got to a place where I don't even think I was following this diet correctly. You see, with keto, you're supposed to be mainly eating fat. The way I was doing it, I was mainly eating protein. And it was never good. Having to avoid carbs as if they're some sort of devil, some sort of enemy was really, really ridiculous. And I wouldn't be able to have things I enjoyed. I'm looking at dessert and I'm like, this is just heavy in carb, I can't have this. Where is the enjoyment in food when you're restricting yourself to that degree? When I'm cutting, I can have very, very low calories and I can still find a way to implement some sort of sweet treat, because I'm not sitting there going, I'm not eating carbs anymore. Like, it's so ridiculous. There's so many things I missed out for that period, and I could have just started exercising and I'd been fine. Working as a weight loss coach, I get one question all the time. Well, it's one idea to a question, but there's a lot of variance there. And it is, should I try X diet? Whether that be egg, keto, carnivore, vegan, water. None of these have some magical component. And I really hate that this is the sort of thing people are pushing. I kind of also hate that I fell for it at a time.
I made an oath when I first started this channel that if I had misled people in some sort of way, I would come back, I'd double track, and I'd go, hey, I made a mistake there. And I said something dumb. Back when I did my first cut, it was so disastrous, it was so horrible, and I ended up getting to a place where I didn't even have abs. I should have had abs if I was doing it properly, but it wasn't great. Currently, I'm cutting again, and things haven't been going the way I'd liked. See, the main reason for this is because I'm sick, and it's like, I can't really do too much about that, but I've essentially been eating at maintenance for a couple of weeks, or maybe a little bit over, I'm not sure, during this period of being sick. And unfortunately, that means I've gained a little bit of weight. I haven't really gone to the gym as much as I'd like, but I used to really focus on one thing, and that was getting in the protein. I didn't care at all about micronutrients. And so how this would typically work is I'd just slam protein shakes, I'd look at food, I'd read the protein number, and that's what I cared about. Recently, I've actually had a bit of a difficult moment, and I've been trying to get in my vitamin C in my cut, and I've been doing this by oranges, like these huge oranges, and I love oranges, so it's not really a pain point for me. But these oranges cost 50p per orange. That is an absurd amount for an orange. And so it got to a point where I was like, I can't keep doing this. And I literally just bought one of those vitamin C supplements. When I first started in the gym, I was doing a ton of junk volume. This is something I'm not going to mention again. I've mentioned it way too many times. I'm sure I'll mention it again in the future, but today I'm not going to go into the whole deep dive of how much volume you need to do. The main thing here was I was picking a lot of exercises that were heavy compounds, very high stability, and I was struggling, man. My core was under such a high demand that I would get the most intense lower back pain. My spinal erectors became the best part of my back because when I was doing these deadlifts and I was doing these barbell rows and everything else under the sun, when I was doing all these things which had zero stability, I was not growing my traps, I was not growing my lats, I was just growing my spinal erectors. And they're still actually a strength for me. I'm sure you remember those times in your youth where you would spam sit-ups and sit-ups and sit-ups, and it would be endless and you could pump out so many and they would never really stop. But if you try to do crunches every now and then, it'd be a bit more difficult. Alongside that, if you try to do a plank, maybe that would be difficult. So you kind of stuck to sit-ups. Where I originally, in my first video, misinformed people, I told them that you could bias the upper abs and the lower abs depending on how you do a movement. And then I realized that was idiotic. Where when I was younger and I was working out every single day, I literally went to bed at 5 a.m. And my sleep was very, very regular. It was never really too consistent. I wasn't making the sort of gains or progress I should have. And I was getting enough sleep. Like hourly, I was getting enough sleep. So my sleep quantity was enough, but the problem was quality. And even to this day, I work actually a bit. Sometimes my sleep is a bit irregular still, and I stay up for a little bit extra. But I have a friend who tells me off when I do that, so it doesn't happen as much as it used to. I'm going to do a poll. I used to see polls absolutely everywhere. I would literally go through and everyone would have the Strawpoll thing. Whether it be in a live stream or a YouTube video, someone was trying to find a way to get audience engagement. Usually it'd be something like a Minecraft video and they'd be like asking for a name for a character and they'd have a few things picked out already. And instead of it just being something where someone goes to the comments and suggests their own created name, it provides an easier way to engage, an easier way to pick something which is already almost done for you. In the past, I've struggled pretty big time with consistency, not just in the things I don't like, but also in some of the things I love. And the gym has been one of those things. It's something where I'm always improving, I'm always doing better. I'm at a time currently where there's a lot of uptime in the gym. Although, there will be moments where I use my better judgment and I realize it might not be the best thing to do right now. So for example, I was very, very sick recently. Like I imagine I'm just literally in bed, not really being able to get up for just hours, feeling pretty awful. It's the whole the big C wave that came back or whatever. It might not even be the big C. I don't think the big C is even COVID, but I digress. The point is, I had taken the idea, I'd chosen to, for about a week, not go. And that week of not going was fine. It was the best thing I could have done. But for a little bit after that, for a few days, I should have gone back. And I didn't. I didn't really feel like it. Obviously, I'd gotten out of the ebb and flow. And I would keep using the excuse that, I'm still recovering from being sick. No, I just didn't feel like it, right? A popping shoulder, it's something I've actually had before. I would do lateral raises and my right shoulder would start popping. And it wasn't like a audio pop because I obviously have music in. It may have been auditory, I don't know. But the point is, I could feel it. I could have this sensation of popping. My go-to cutting meal is, I'll go through the entire process. So the first thing I do is I cut up some tofu. Now, I will have various different cutting techniques I try. I like to keep things different. I used to make these tiny cubes. Now I make these triangles. I've also fried it, a few times. That's a really good way to do it, but it takes a bit more time, so I typically don't touch it. And no, eating tofu, eating soy will not increase your estrogen, decrease your testosterone. That is completely baseless. It's not true. It's a lie. And after I do this, I used to actually cook it with some noodles, but I decided I just have to warm them. I actually have to cook the tofu. So now I will chuck it in this big white bowl. When that is done, I will put some water into boil, and I will put in 2 bits of broccoli. And whilst that happens, I'll go find some spinach. It's either in the freezer or it's still fresh because it hasn't gone off yet. And I'll just get about 20 grams, like a huge handful. I'll put it in the bowl with the tofu. Then I'll open one of those instant ramen packs. And I know, but I found a way to make it work. I can get everything I need while still having that. And the ease it brings me, I'm in the past, I've done normal noodles. It's just not the same, okay? It's just not the same. What I'll do is I'll get the seasoning and I will put it on top of the bowl. So when I end up transferring noodles in, it will, end up mixing with the sauce. And so then water's boiling, put the noodles in. Next, I do another lazy thing. Well, these are all very lazy things. It's probably why it's my go-to thing. And I will literally have this every single day. The next thing I'll do is I'll crack 3 eggs into my noodles. And then they will cook alongside the noodles. I'll throw it in the bowl. And voila, my go-to cutting meal is done. I'm cutting now. And this has become really, really stuffing. I don't know why, but it's becoming a challenge to eat, which is absolutely awesome because can you imagine having something that satiating? It's pretty good. I literally can't get out of bed and I spend my entire day in bed. 2 days before, I had done a absolutely brutal leg session. This is one of the first leg sessions I actually took seriously. And we're talking about a year into the gym. I did it with my friend. It was insane. All the sets were almost to failure before I started training to failure. It was brutal, man. And what was worse is the day after the session, there was no soreness. I was like, oh, that's great. You know, I'm not going to struggle. I guess I just don't get sore anymore. The day after is when it hit me like a truck. And I literally couldn't move. I don't know why I was given a day off, but it was like there was a delay. I had of time off recently because I was sick. And there were a few lazy leg days before taking the time off and after taking the time off. And then I went back to doing squats. Went back to doing good mornings. And it hit me again. Like a truck. It was one of the worst things I've been through recently. And I couldn't even walk to Sainsbury's. I could not get there. By the way, Sainsbury's is a store here in England. I couldn't get there because it just felt so heavy. I was so weak. And to add insult to injury, because of this soreness, I was going upstairs to my breakfast, this big bowl of noodles, and I slip. And then I ended up not really breaking my toe, but really hurting it. It, soreness, why would anyone want it, basically? I used to take way too many supplements. Genuinely, there'd be about 20 bottles I had on my desk, and every single week I'd have to portion, well, not every single week, every single day, because this is before I had like a pill sorter where I could have week by week, day by day. I would sit there every single day, portioning the exact amount of every single thing. Lord knows how I managed to remember the exact amount of every single thing that I needed, but I did. And this was barely moving the deal. This was barely moving the door for me. I really wasn't getting many results out of this. And in fact, a lot of the things I was taking, I probably would never ever need to take. And a lot of things I weren't taking, I probably really should take. And so over the past 2 years, and I mean this because I literally recorded this video 2 years ago. I know there was a huge delay between me starting my channel and recording my videos, but I recorded this video, I got super mad because it was muted. The entire video was muted, and that really annoyed me. Like, I tried to record it again a couple times, it just wasn't the same. I couldn't do it. And so this was intending to be a yearly supplement video. Every single year I update what I'm taking. Of course, it never happened. Started the channel, this video got forgotten about. Then I remembered it again. I was like, people would love to hear about this. My history, I was taking, it was so bad. When I was in my phase of trying to maximize testosterone with random stuff, which wouldn't even maximize it, I bought a lot of things, and that being the case, a lot of the time I would bulk buy them to save money. So left over from that era is one supplement still, and that is Physique Agristis, I think it's pronounced. Not too sure. Don't think many people know how to pronounce it anyway, so we're all good. Now this is literally just some like pill I take every single day. I think it makes no real difference, but I'm just gonna keep taking it until it's gone because I did pay for it. I might as well continue going for it. Like, I've genuinely had this for a few years now. There was a week where I stopped taking magnesium and I had like the worst sleep of my life. Didn't know why. Then I realized that my magnesium had run out and I'd stopped putting it into like my pill containers. And then I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense. And maybe it wasn't causation, but I believe it was causation looking back. And, when I realized that happened, I think it was the magnesium. Okay, I don't know if you noticed this, but I have very pale skin. This is because I burn, so I try and limit sun exposure. In fact, it may look like I have sunburn right now, but I started taking something called tretinoin recently. And by recently, I mean yesterday. Although, for you guys, this is like a Thursday video or a Friday video. I think it's Friday. So this was actually recorded on Sunday. And on Saturday, I did my first tretinoin, which I've accidentally told people I'm doing tren. Made a spelling mistake, trying to write tret. But I digress. The point is, I started doing it. And before it starts working and giving you this amazing skin, so, you guys can look at me and I look better and it's a nicer image and, hopefully it helps cut the channel. Before it does that, it does something called a skin purge, where it ruins your skin. So I have been batching videos like crazy because I don't want to have like a bunch of acne and like dry skin when on the channel. But day one in, we've already got some, it looks like sunburn, it's just inflammation. I don't get enough vitamin C in my diet. I tried it with oranges for a bit and there was just too much to take. It was a bit expensive. And so I just opted for something which was like 100th the price. I put together my own electrolyte formula. I absolutely love making supplements. Got my own pre-workout, which we'll talk about later, so I don't know why I mention it. But this electrolyte powder is a combination of magnesium, Oh gosh. Magnesium, sodium, and potassium in their salt form, not in like pure magnesium, like magnesium 2 or whatever it would be. But absolutely love it. My gym sessions, my pump has been very much enhanced. Alongside this, I actually have protein powder. Why haven't I talked about creatine? I also take creatine. Creatine is something I've taken every single day since I probably started the gym. Protein powder. I have taken this in my cut a few times now because when I don't get the protein requirement I need, it's a very easy way to get it in. That last little bit. It's not something I try to do because obviously for satiation, for actually being able to physically eat something, it's not great. But something like that can be pretty awesome. Next week on Tuesday, I'm going to gym with a friend and I'm probably going to take some of this before because it'll be like a 12 session, 12 a.m., which means it won't affect my sleep. Anyway, caffeine, beta-alanine, L-citrulline, taurine, tyrosine. I think that's it. I think that's everything. That makes my sessions incredible. I absolutely love it. I've seen a supplement company that does a blood test and then put together a multivitamin based on your blood. And it gives you something almost identical to what you can get at the local pharmacy. But you're spending 100 times the amount so that it can match your blood.
A friend of 7 years, Claudio, told me he was starting the gym. And he was training horribly. He was literally hopping onto a machine and grinding out 100 reps until he started feeling the burn. The training really wasn't as good as it should have been. And so I did what I do best. I made him the perfect workout.
This was one of the most embarrassing things in my life. In fact, I have a journal which keeps a record of my actual workouts. I can look back and reminisce almost. And this day I will never look at. This one day where I had a PT, essentially what happened is my friend had given me a workout which is very intense. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I was quite new. And it gets to a point where the gym owner asked me if I want like a free PT session. Of course I accept it because why would I not take that opportunity? Oh boy. I go into this chest day and he's like, we're not going to do the entire thing. At first, I didn't really enjoy that because obviously I wanted to complete the entire thing, but in reality, there were 12 exercises. I should not have completed it. We ended up doing 3. But the first thing was the bench press. And I was weak. My muscles were atrophied. And my bench, we couldn't do the empty bar. And then we couldn't do the bar you use for bicep curls. That little 10 kilogram bar, we could not do it. And that was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. When I went through my personal training certification, which is something I regret ever paying for, but I was like, might as well do it now that I've bought it. I remember there was a section where they were talking about the ways to progressively overload. And they went through like reps, rest, form, tempo, and just a bunch of things which weren't actually progressive overload. There were just other things that were getting confused. Like reducing rest isn't gonna progressively overload. It's not gonna make the exercise any better. Like how are you gonna work out your progress when you're just decreasing the ability to perform on it? It's reps and weight. Like why would you teach anyone this matters? They were teaching combo movements as progressive overload, but they will go in. And I remember once someone asked the instructor, right, they were talking about how in order to do kettlebell work you need to get the kettlebell course, and someone asked why, and their response was that you're not qualified to do it. But in reality, everyone knows how to work a kettlebell. Like it's not that difficult, and legally you're fine, but obviously they're not going to make money that way. Even simple things like your exercise straps, your wrist straps or whatever they're called, even that needs to have a video understanding it, because I wore them the wrong way around for 2 years, and not only did it limit my back growth, but it actually made it worse than if I weren't using straps, because it was leading to me being weaker. Oh, like, now you might be standing there and you might be like, but I've seen guys who had blown up and had almost like a second newbie gains period just by changing their training. Because when it comes to me and I look at myself, I'm like, okay, I can see where I'm weak. I can see where I'm strong. I'm kind of seeing it objectively. And yeah, there'll be days where I look at myself and I'm like, you know, I wish I was using straps properly. I wish my back was bigger. I wish I'd taken legs more seriously. I wish I'd done more on my chest. You know, of course there are days from that. When I did my previous cut, I wasn't cutting properly. I also wasn't training properly. And it left me feeling like genetics were a huge part. And it left me feeling like genetics had a huge part to play. Like I was literally looking at myself and I was like, oh, I'm not getting lean. I'm not I haven't actually built much muscle. I feel like I'm the same as I was back before. I wasn't. I was definitely above, but it's the fact that all this stuff had come in and combined, and just because I wasn't doing things correctly, it led to me being very demotivated. Like, I didn't want to go as often, and of course that snowballs into me getting worse results. And what did it come down to? My training was awful. Too much volume, not enough. When it came to my nutrition, I was barely getting enough protein. When it came to my sleep was subpar. And honestly, nutrition, it comes down to not enough protein, not enough consistency in actually eating. Some days I just wasn't eating, not enough calories. And then it all loops in with not being consistent in the gym. And yeah, I didn't look that great at the end. Is that a surprise? There is a photo of me a month before everything derailed in the cut. And I look spectacular. My back looks the best it ever has. I'm so happy with it. And then the month after, when you would expect the back to look better because obviously it's leaner, my back actually was worse. It was less lean just because of how awful I was training and eating. And my sister's baking every single day. She's making these amazing brownies, these amazing cookies, these amazing cakes, and I'm just gobbling it down. But, I have a certain calories to make. So what do? I take a little bit less of the other stuff. I have a little bit less in the meals. And I'm not even really controlling my meals. I'm still having the stuff my mum makes. So I go to dinner, I look at what she's made, and I go, oof, how can I fit this in? And of course I can't fit it in. Like, not only are the proportions all off, but it's not very easy to do when there's not much protein in a meal, because it's a mother's meal. That's what a mother's meal is like. And so I'm going to the gym, I'm getting my reps in, but I'm getting less reps. And, I believe it's normal. I believe my strength should be going down in the cut. And I'm losing muscle, I'm losing strength, and I'm just thinking that's normal. And the thing is, this is 2 years in. I should actually be gaining muscle, gaining strength in a deficit. I am not advanced enough to not do that. And yet I was losing. And attached to this, I completely believe that this is normal. This is what I expect people to happen. This is what I expect to happen when you lose body fat, you lose muscle, you lose strength. It's as if it's like a common understood fact when it's really not the case for someone who's... The second I started using straps properly, because I was using them incorrectly for years, the second I do that, even though I'm cutting, my strength is getting way too high. My muscle is getting so high. We go to this Japanese restaurant next to the gym, right? And we're eating these amazing things. I literally remember it's some of the best food I've had in my life. They had this fish salad, and it was 2 different fishes, some sauces and some lettuce, but it was honestly the most delectable thing I've had in my life. And we also had, just those amazing chicken katsu. There were so many things that were absolutely incredible. But for one of my friends, this was the only meal he had. He would have one meal a day, and he'd get a lot of protein, he'd get a lot of fat, he'd get some carbs in, but that was it. That was his way of cutting. I don't necessarily agree with the method, but I do think, that's, I'm happy you're doing it, basically. I'm happy that you're taking this challenge, because it is a challenge, and it's very, very difficult to do, and something like that, is going to be easy. And plus, he was quite new to the gym, so it means it's not going to interrupt his strength gains. And did it? No. He got so strong, he got so muscular. Every single week I saw him, he was becoming an entirely different person. Let's say we took a time span of 5 months. If I looked at the guy at the beginning and the end, they didn't even look the same. They were 2 different guys. It was so incredible. And yet, for me, 5 months into the gym, I didn't feel like a new person. Now, this could be due to poor training. Although back then, when I was coaching my friend, I did not know everything I know now. I knew a little bit. I knew more than I started, but there's still a 1-2 year gap of knowledge in between me now and me then. And this was probably body dysmorphia, right? I probably just couldn't notice the changes. I'd seen it incrementally day by day, and I just didn't know what was going on. I actually made an incredible video about this a while back. I think it was one of my first videos. It was basically about dead hangs and how that made me realize that I'd completely changed. If you want to give that a watch, it will be in one of the corners. My sessions used to be pretty awful. Not only was I doing a ton of junk volume, I was literally doing about 30 to 60 sets per workout, but my rests themselves were 60 seconds, and I would literally count over and over again all the way up to 60, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up to 60, and then I would hit the set, and I'd be tired. I wouldn't really push hard. There was zero intensity, and I'd just go again and again and again and again, just going through the motions, just moving the weight, not really enjoying, not really progressing, not really achieving. And these were 2-hour sessions, so I was giving up a lot of my day, and I gave up a lot of months not really doing things properly. That is not easy to say, because I can look back and I can know that I might be where I am now in like 1.5 years if I just started better. I've seen abstracts which give an entirely different conclusion to the actual conclusion. I've spent hours reading these studies, so you can go read them too. You can see if your conclusion is different. People have accused me of misinterpreting studies, and they don't even read the study. They just take like a small snippet. I like to annotate the sets instead of 1, 2, 3. I actually annotate with an F to show I failed, and then I will always literally take the set to failure. And if I don't within like my desired rep range, I will always increase it. But because I'm at a place now where I know the weights I'm supposed to be using, even if I go above my desired rep range, which is typically 5 to 10, I will keep going until I reach failure, because I know that I'm building a ton of fatigue and I might as well get a good stimulus, even if it means pumping out 1, 2, 3 more. You see, I used to drink a ton of diet soda, and it was like my cope, right? It was my way of surviving in the cut because I was so hungry. And then I dialed in my macros just a little bit more. I got them to 100%, and the second I did that, I was just not hungry. My meals could be really tiny and I'd be stuffed. My appetite would just shrink because I'm getting everything I need and I don't need anything more. And yeah, I know I could have still gone to like an all-you-can-eat buffet and absolutely stuffed my face, but it's the fact that I didn't have the hunger. When I used to play this game called Minecraft, there was a server called Hypixel. I know I'm being very illiteral, but like people aren't here from like a Minecraft channel, it's a fitness channel. And so they had something called guilds. And there was a YouTuber who had like 3.4 million subscribers, but he completely died. And his name was Antvenom. And he happened to be in my guild. And it was like me and 5 other guys. And I had no idea how he was there. But it was something I used to brag. Like, it was really, really sad. But I would just brag about the fact that Antvenom's in my guild to just people in game, I guess. But that was back to the important stuff, right? As I said, I've been to the gym. I get quite energetic. I get energetic because I'm tired. And it's like an overcompensation. I've seen people who will avoid deficits like it's a plague because they think they're going to lose muscle, they're going to lose. I'm sitting at my desk, it's 4 p.m, and yet again, I am stuffing my face with food. I'm having spoon after spoon after spoon of rice. I'm drinking protein shakes alongside this, even though there's protein in my meal. And I'm also having some sweets. I'm having some cookies because, let's be real,
1,000 calories of cookies is like this much. It's nothing. You can eat it.
This is painful. And not only do I have to do this now, I have to do it the next day, the day after that. And there is no variance. I can't afford my brain points, right? I can't spend that on creating cool, unique meals. I need to stick to what I know works. My rice, my chicken, my broccoli, my protein shakes. And I will die on that hill. Week 1, gain a bit of strength. Week 2, gain a little bit of strength. Week 3, a bit more. And we get to week 8. And I barely gained any strength. But what have I gained? I have gained a ton of weight, a ton of body fat, even more than I was supposed to be. My calorie surplus is supposed to be 250, and yet I've gained 16 kilos. What's going on here? 8 weeks ago, I went onto the calorie calculator. I put in all my strange details, my height, my age, my weight, and it told me exactly how much I need to do to bulk. And it had some activity levels. There were like a bunch of varying ones, and I selected the second lowest one because, I don't go out much. So what is happening? What has this weird website led me to do? I was gaining twice the amount of weight as I should have been. And not only that, but I was eating a ton of protein. Protein was like my lifeline. I was eating a lot, and I had a lot of protein. If this amount of protein is going to build me extra muscle, what's going on? Clearly something's wrong with my training, but that is not the pure thing that's going wrong because I'm also gaining too much weight. And then it occurred to me, these calorie calculators, they're based on your mass, but there's no differentiating between if that mass is fat or muscle. And muscle burns more calories than fat. So clearly what's going on is this stupid calorie calculator website has no sort of way to adjust for my body fat percentage, and now I've gained way too much fat. It's absolutely ridiculous. I'm nervous about my exam. I'm standing and there's people in front of me and in front of me and in front of me and behind me and behind me and behind me. And to my side, there's people all lined up. To my other side, there's people all lined up. And my teachers are walking around and they're making sure we're not speaking. They're making sure we're not communicating. As even though the exam hasn't started, we're already under exam-like conditions. We have to be silent. And then I see one guy, a friend of mine, and he's got this grin on his face. He's smiling and he's happy, and I can't get why. It's not that he's top of the class. It's not that he's bottom of the class. He's just an average guy. And for whatever reason, he's got this beaming smile. And then I'm struggling. This is one of the hardest exams I think I've done so far. I'm writing my answers in. Every single time, I feel like I've got it wrong. I turn to the guy. He's a couple seats back. And every time I look at him, he's smiling, he's grinning. And yet he's not even on the same page as I am. He's like 5 pages before. And this is one of the most stressful things I'm going through. This is not easy. When the exam bell finally rings, I go up to him. And he's still smiling. I have like a sunken feeling. I know I didn't do good. And yet, he looks so happy. And so I ask him, why have you been so happy about this? Why does it look like you're anticipating this exam, like you've loved doing it? And then he tells me that for the past 5 years, he's been working up to this final exam, just like all of us. Every single lesson has been building up to that one point, and he's got it over with. He's finally finished that thing, and he'll never ever have to do it again. He's done. So why would he not be happy about it? Why would he stress and overthink it when the second this is over, it's over? That's when it occurred to me, there are some things that we just have to accept. And there's something I'll talk about later which will bring this idea up again, and you'll understand why I started with this. I am one of the few people where getting through a door is an issue. See, we have this entire situation with my cats where basically we have 4 cats. It's too much. I don't want a single one. But essentially, 2 of the cats don't like each other. 2 of the other cats don't like each other. And so if they're together, they're fighting. And so it's like the riddle where the farmer has to get like the chicken and the wolf and the grain, and it has to like move them across the river without like anyone dying. That's the scenario that we basically have to do. And because these 2 cats can't be in the same room, obviously the door has to stay shut at all times. But when you have a cat who's trying to kill the other one, and they're like praying at the door, getting in and out is pretty difficult. And so for me, the complication I have is my frame is too wide. So when I'm trying to get in and out the door, it's very, very difficult, and I can barely do it without like them coming through and stuff. Imagine your gym right now, and you can imagine the guys doing the shoulder exercises. They're doing front delt raises, which makes no sense because 1, that's not actually going to do anything to grow your shoulder. Your front delt is being adequately hit when you're doing any sort of pressing movement. But 2, what else are they doing? They're doing their laterals. Okay, we're getting somewhere with that. Maybe they're doing some weird shoulder presses. Maybe they're doing other stuff. Doesn't really matter. But the common theme we see here is they're using really, really, really light weight. And they're doing a ton of reps. There's also a guy you probably can imagine who's doing lateral raises, and he's one of the few guys using heavy weight, but his form looks like he's using his rotators, right? He's doing like that. He is wrecking his shoulders, he's damaging them, and it's not looking good. It really isn't looking good, and his shoulders aren't really growing, so there's that too. Now, I used to be this sort of guy. A lot of my friends used to be this sort of person before I like actually put them onto how to train properly. And so of course the first thing I had to fix was the fact that I was using lightweight and too many reps. The big problem that I actually used to do is I used to shorten the movement arm. So I used to bend my arms when doing laterals. I was doing that, right? I was going in the middle, but I'd have that bend. And so it would essentially make it where there's not really a ton of stress on my elbow joint, but it's actually becoming more of a front delt and more of a trap movement. When I first started university, I spent £600 buying a new wardrobe. This is my first opportunity to have money, my first opportunity to really find my style. You know, the period before that was COVID, I wasn't really doing anything. And before that, I hadn't been working. I didn't really have the money to buy a wardrobe. And I was so happy about this happening. And then 6 months later, none of it fits me anymore. See, since this point, I haven't really bought new clothes other than oversized clothing. I never really biased my rear delt efficiently, but there was one thing I did do. I did a ton of rows where I was effectively hitting the rear delt, and this meant my rear delts were bigger than most. However, there was one day where I was like, let's try out a rear delt exercise. And I'd maybe done some before that, but the rear delt exercises weren't really performed properly. You know, there's a lot of scapular movement, so it was mainly my upper back instead of my actual shoulders, and I wanted to really focus on the rear delt. I go home, after finally doing that exercise correctly, I look in the mirror and my rear delt is just... And I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, where did that come from? There is an alien growing on my arm. And ever since then, it has been a joy checking out the rear delt pump after hitting them. Even though I don't do it like every single back day, it is a beautiful thing to train and hit properly. I have a tendency of skipping rear delts a lot of the time because I do hit it adequately with rows. I'm in a forest. It's 8 a.m. right in the middle of winter. I'm walking over with a hot cup of coffee in my hand. As I walk, it splashes out the cup and burns me. I start cleaning the paintball goggles. The only thing on my mind is how long of a day it's going to be, how tired I'm going to be, and the fact that I've never been to Build-A-Bear workshop. A day goes by and I'm absolutely exhausted. 7 a.m. wake up, 8 a.m. train. I can feel the rhythmic hum draining my life away. 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 12 p.m. I finally get a break. I meet up with my friend and he's doing the weird thing he always does, where he's moaning about his girlfriend, he's got his huge, big, electric, solar-powered vape in hand, and he's brooding in public. We have a choice to make. It goes one of three ways. Grab some food, go on a walk, or call it a day and just go home. I'm extremely tired and I just want the last option. Then I hear this noise over and over again. I'm in this tiny pizza place surrounded by people. This man is getting agitated that I'm just not answering. I look around a little more and notice this weird Nutella-topped chocolate pizza dessert. I'm here again and I accept it. I hand over my money and grab a pizza. After sitting down, my friend starts pouring ranch dressing, tons and tons of pots, into his pizza box. On top of the pizza, rolls it up and starts eating it with the ranch dripping all down his face and into the box below him. £15. I've spent £15 today. It's one day of the week. What am I killing myself working for? When I looked down and I saw the junk food, and I looked up and I saw his disgusting face covered in ranch dressing, I realized there's no point in making money if this is what I'm going to do with it. I have stretch marks all down here and all down here just because I build muscle too fast, which isn't the worst thing in the world. But that's who is being marketed to with these collagen supplements. I used to use TikTok quite a lot and I'd scroll through and every now and then there'd be a Reddit story and it'd be really, really good. It'd be about this like scrawny little kid and he took something and it completely changed his life. And it would be so descriptive and it was supposed to be like a real thing, I wrote this real story, this real thing that happened to me. And right at the end, it would be like, okay, I took Kingmaker, go to Kingmaker. And then you realize that it's just an advertisement for Kingmaker. And it's just playing on all like the primal desires almost.